Okay, YouTubers, this is the Angryprepper. So today's video, we're going to talk about New York City getting hot. Now, we are seeing something here in the city we haven't seen since the 80s. Again, you guys saw my Gangs in New York video and my other crime update videos, if you will, throughout the last couple of weeks. And here in New York, we are reaching the levels of Chicago and Detroit. Now, I say that because right now, or this past weekend, we had 30 shootings, and which means 30 people were shot, 4 people died. That's like Chicago, Detroit shit, guys, over a week. Now, the city used to be like that back in the days, and now it's getting to that level again, and it shows you one thing. It shows you that the mayor's a piece of shit, because this happened under him. The spike in shootings were over one hot day, guys, or a hot weekend, if you will, here in New York City. Now, when I say that it's getting hot, I mean it's getting hot like this shit is on here in the city, not the weather. The weather, it looks like, guys, we're gonna have a fucking hot summer. I mean, you get a couple hot days in May, we get a couple hot days in June. That's forecasting the weather for the rest of the summer. It's gonna be hot. It's gonna be fucking hot as balls, and people get severely agitated in the heat. So if people get severely agitated in the heat, imagine what you're gonna get for the whole summer. You got July, August, and some of September to deal with, right? So with this getting worse, the amount of heat is going to dictate how much crime is going to happen. Now, if we get a wet summer, we're probably gonna have less crime, less shit going on, because, well, people are scared of water for whatever reason, and usually cool weather calms people down, right? So weather does dictate, especially here in the city, how the city's going to respond when it comes to crime and violence. I talked about this in the Gangs of New York City, the video I posted. The gangs here in the city are a lot worse than I thought. Now, again, in the 80s and the 90s, I grew up around it. I grew up knowing guys that were in gangs. I grew up with guys who knew of gang leaders, you know, like were friends with them. But, and so I knew how that gang operation ran for the most part. But the new shit that's going on now, like, for example, I thought all Bloods and all Crips stayed on each other's side. So I thought all Crips, which were the guys that wore blue, stayed on the Crip side, and all guys that were Bloods, who were red, stayed on their side. That doesn't happen anymore. It's fucking insane how the Bloods and the Crips have their own sets. So within the Blood group, or gang, if you will, they have different sets. So, for example, they'll have the River Ave set. They'll have the 169 set. They'll have the St. Nicholas set in Manhattan, right? They'll have all these different sets, and they don't get along. So they're not friends with one another. They don't see each other and go, what's up, and give each other some kind of, 10-minute long secret handshake. You're not with my set, and they'll just start shooting at each other for no other fucking reason. Now, when they look to expand, that's where a lot of the problems come off. When they look to expand their drug empire, if you will, that's where they run into a lot of their problems. That's where they run into a lot of their shootings. They don't run into a lot of their shootings other than that. I think if they are on one another's blocks, that's where they run into problems again. The amount of crime we're going to see this summer, especially if we have a hot summer, is telling me right now, which sucks, is that my kids can't play outside this summer, and if they do, I have to be outside with them. All right, keep in mind they're young teens, right? They're entering their teenage years, and at their age, I used to be outside playing when New York City was at its worst, and we still, my brother, I, and the guys we hung out with, we still held our own. We got into street fights and shit like that, but it was simple then. It was so much simpler then. Now it's a lot more complicated. People are a lot more angry for no reason, and people are quick to reach for a gun. So now my kids can't go outside and just fist fight and play. They have to worry about some asshole pulling a gun on them. So because this shit is getting out of control, because the crime is getting that much higher, they can't even go outside to fucking play. Now, yes, I know a lot of you are saying, why don't you move? Again, I still have 5 years left with the FD, and the housing market is for shit right now, especially here in New York or the tri-state area. Now, some of you guys said Tennessee, Texas, North Carolina. The housing market even went up there. So I was looking into it, and it's still cheap in comparison to New York City, Pennsylvania, Connecticut. That is true, but nonetheless, I don't want to pay over market value for a house. So again, even with 5 years left, we're still stuck here, right? And we're looking to move out of the neighborhood and maybe moving to a better neighborhood, but we're still in a crime-ridden city. So it's damned if we do, damned if we don't kind of situation right now. Now, my wife and myself, we are street smart. The kids aren't, unfortunately. They just didn't grow up in that environment, but now that environment is happening, I'm like, do we let them go outside and, like fight it out for themselves if they have to, or do we keep babying them and protecting them? That's the issue I'm having right now. But nonetheless, it's not about them fighting. It's about the gang violence and the guns on the street. It's about the shootings that are happening left and right. It's about the innocent people that are being shot left and right. That's the issue. So that's a dilemma in itself. Granted, guys, the other problem with the kids, well, my kids being on the street right now, is that gangs are recruiting. They're recruiting left and right. So obviously, I don't want to expose the kids to that. But I also want them to know that if someone walks up to them and tells them, hey, man, you want to join our gang, and it'll be like family, to tell them to go fuck themselves. I can also tell them to do that. And I've had that conversation. But with gangs doing a lot of recruiting, with gangs trying to expand their empire, if you will, it's going to be an ongoing problem. So, again, if you live in the city, if you have kids that live in the city, you have to keep your eye on your kids. You got to know who they're hanging out with, when they're hanging out with, and where they're hanging out with. More importantly, where, right? Because, like, on my block, we don't have any gangs. We have drug dealers down the block, but they're, I hate to say it, respectful in the sense that they don't encroach on other kids. They don't tell other kids to hang out with them. Hey, we'll make you money. They don't do any of that shit. And so they're, I guess you can call them a drug gang, but they're not really a gang. They don't have a name or set, any of that crazy shit. They just sell their weed or whatever the fuck they're selling, and that's it. So with that, those guys, and because they know who I am, they're not going to, fuck around with my kids in that manner. But if gangs start expanding, that's the problem, because when gangs expand, what do? They bring the violence with them. Gangs expand, guys. It's never, it's never a nice thing. They don't come to a block and go, yo, we're taking your block over. And the other block members are like, all right, man, you got it. That shit don't ever happen. They're like, oh yeah? And then they get no gunfight right then and there. So, again, guys, with the amount of crime, with the amount of shootings, everything is changing here in the city. With the mixture of COVID and the mayor and his bullshit, and the mayor worried about a couple of Jews getting yelled at, Hasidic Jews getting yelled at, and then him launching a police assault on anti-Semitic attacks versus the amount of crime and kids, the amount of crime out here, the amount of kids getting killed, the amount of people getting shot in the Bronx area, like here, where I live. He's not addressing that. But let's address a couple of Hasidic Jews that got their hats flipped off their head and yelled at. Ooh, right? Let's fucking focus on a couple of, Asians that got beat up. Whoa. But the amount of people that are dying, they're not focusing on. So the mayor's priority, back to that piece of shit, is all over the place, guys. This guy, again, he's protecting two smaller groups in the city that have less than, well under 1% of the crime happening to them. Now, some people be like, well, it was a lot of Asians that got beat up for no reason. All right, yeah. So then you focus on the areas where the crime is. You focus on the problem. But you don't send an entire police force into the Hasidic Jew community, for example, instead of putting them here where they belong, or in Manhattan, in Harlem, or in Brooklyn, Queens. Those are the fucking areas they need to be. They don't need to be in a Hasidic Jew community where they have attacks once in a blue, where they get yelled at and the entire community gets scared. Oh my God, they yelled at me. Let me call 911. Right? So this is the problem, and this is the disproportionate bullshit that goes on in the city. They want to focus on a couple of people getting attacked versus a few hundred people dying or getting shot. I'll tell you, the one problem here in the city, guys, is the fucking garbage trucks that I want to fucking smash in the face, the drivers, because they are fucking obnoxious with their trucks. But that's not the point. That's another fucking problem that I'm not going to address in the video. Anyway, guys, the shit is on. Things are getting in here. Like, it's funny because you sort of go, okay, the city's getting bad, we'll adapt. You start adapting, and then some new shit happens. You're like, what the fuck, really? You know, and then the slashings, and then the beatings, and a 14-year-old girl just got stabbed to death for fucking nothing. Kids are getting stabbed left and right. People are getting shot left and right. And we're focused on what? Alright, guys, so anyway, this is the Angry Prepper. Thank you for watching. You can like, subscribe to this channel. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook as the Angry Truth channel. You can follow me on Instagram and Telegram. Other than that, guys, thank you for watching.